And I think that's about creating a space and a platform and a focus to center everything back to people.
This is Velocitize Talks, and I'm Eric Jones. I'm here with Steve Kreeger, the head of user experience at Earnest. It's good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So Steve, tell us a little bit about Earnest and what makes you special in the agency ecosystem.
As Earnest, we're a B2B agency specifically, and we work pretty much in that kind of creative, conceptual brand marketing space, but specifically to try and position a little bit more of a human side, but shaking that up a little bit. Because I think typically over the years and years, B2B has been perhaps a little bit dry to some degree. And ultimately we're all people, right? So I think at Earnest, the whole focus is around reshaping that a little bit.
So tell us a little bit about what are the sort of successful ingredients of a great UX, right? That's where your background is, and I think it is a very important challenge that you're trying to solve, making these digital experiences a little bit more human.
Yeah, for sure. I think the reality is with user experience, it's nothing new. In my opinion, it is what it is. It's empathy. It's an engagement with people, and it's an improvement to create something better or to reduce barriers or whatever it is. So for me, user experience has always been a challenge to help people understand it's not an add-on. It's not a service that you add on to something in a digital way. And sometimes you see agencies or environments talk about, oh, we'll do the UX bit now, as if it's a part of that process. So in terms of kind of world-class or leading user experience, it's got to be embedded in the culture of that piece of work or that focus of digital. And I think that's about creating a space and a platform and a focus to center everything back to people, right? So it's about how do we think about what this barrier might be or what this improvement could be, or how can we create an opportunity to improve something faster, quicker, better, or ultimately from a business point of view, B2B, how can we increase bottom line, or how can we increase conversion on a sign up.
Tell us a little bit about how personalization fits into user experience these days.
I think it's huge. I think it's a growing piece of focus. I think ultimately, as I say, it's about people and understanding people. So if there is a degree of more data that we can gather in whatever way that can be done, obviously appropriately and legally, then there is an opportunity to increase personalization in a digital context.
So I wondered if you could give us maybe some examples of how an improvement in user experience delivered some very clear business results for a client that you were involved with.
Yeah, sure. So over the years, I've worked in various settings, from kind of blue chip through to kind of B2B and corporate and B2C, and I think sometimes there are challenges that time restricts some of the things you can do. Both in what you try and achieve, but also actually in then seeing it come to fruition, because there's a big development process after you've done a piece of kind of process in UX or research or whatever. But two of the ones that I think for me have been significant is we worked with a large UK insurance company in my previous role, or global insurance company, and they needed their household quote engine. So you go onto their website and get household insurance. They needed to see an increase in conversion. We did kind of multi-policies and car policies and pet insurance and things. We did all of those as well, but this particular one, for them, hit over a 40% increase in conversion through to taking out a policy after, I think, a number of months within the first year of it launching, which is insane. That was our biggest quantifiable number of increase.
So maybe could we explore that a little bit? In an ideal world, what is the full process of sitting with a client and developing a whole new UX approach?
There are always, in any sort of project, but particularly when UX, user experience is a focus, and I think probably that is a key. What is the focus of this piece of work? Is it about conversion? Is it about a better user experience? Or is it about a brand awareness piece? Is it a campaign piece? Of which both user experience is fundamental, but the focus is actually brand awareness. And within that, we will focus on how we're going to engage with users in the most appropriate and engaging way. But I think it's a process is important. I think I'm a big fan of what I know in America is a lot more understood than perhaps it is here in the UK when we talk about it, but this concept of playbook, where you have a series of, just like American football, of course, where you have a series of different tactics and ideas and ways to evolve and meander around a project rather than a set, locked-in kind of process. So a lot more of an agile mental approach. But actually, you still need some degree of what we're trying to get to and how might we get there. So for me, it's understanding people and insight and knowledge. It's then defining and understanding problems around that and the goals that we might be trying to achieve. And then defining a series of those activities against that, which perhaps elevate possible opportunities or ways to improve on that scenario or possibly solve it. Then go and test that at a low level. And that could be a variety of different activities, from prototypes to physical testing or knocking up a small page or an application or whatever.
How do you think some of the different approaches now, like headless architectures, how do you think that is going to change UX?
I think it already is, in a good way. I think headless is really exciting. And at my previous role, we've built a number of different headless systems using WordPress as the core CMS for content. And then we built one in React, one in Vue. So various different kind of front-end frameworks allow the flexibility of actually, let's do anything almost, and then let's decide what that framework should be. Sometimes clients come with a prescribed, we need something in WordPress or we need something in this particular CMS. And actually headless gives you the opportunity to go, great, fine. But actually we can decouple any potential WordPress theme framework stuff that may to some degree restrict our creative thinking into let's go to town and make those two things an incredible user experience. Because actually half the problem sometimes for clients is that their back-end system sucks as well. And that is a bad user experience from an internal administration point of view. So actually with WordPress being so simple and so easy and so, as a UI, quite simple to use, and you can, as we all know, you can hide and create and add very flexibly within the codex. So it allows us to then do both sides of that experience from an administration point of view and a brand organization, all the way through to that incredible let's go to town.
So tell me a little bit about how you think about performance as it relates to user experience, right? Because we talked a little bit about Flash, and that was it allowed you to do some pretty beautiful things, but it wasn't necessarily particularly performant. And then now with Google and the new Core Web Vitals, which is meant to improve user experience. How are you beginning to think about that?
Yeah, performance is huge on any website, I think, in terms of engagement, in terms of conversion rate, in terms of actually people's decision to stay or leave. And I think sometimes there is there's kind of that sweet spot, isn't there, that if certain things don't load in a certain amount of time, within a second or two, then actually people typically do leave and they'll go elsewhere. And I think there is only an edge case sometimes when you know you need that content or that website, a government site or council. They're the sort of ones where you might wait a little bit longer, where it's probably the only scenario. So performance is massive. And even there, people will get frustrated. There's a concept in kind of UX laws called the peak end rule, which is the peak and the end moments of that journey of a user experience. Those two moments, or how you feel in those two moments, are two of the key elements of how you feel when everything is done. So if you feel rubbish when you're doing the major task because it's taking you ages to load, and then right at the end when it's spinning and spinning and spinning, you know it's done, but you can't get it, or you don't get a confirmation validation that you've finished your form or whatever it is. Either or both of those two significantly influence the overall experience. Whereas if you've had kind of little bits of frustration here and there, but the key moments have been better, then actually overall you feel a little bit better about doing that and going through that experience. And that, I think, is across everything, from digital through to a restaurant meal. Someone plonks your thing in front of you as opposed to elegantly puts it down in front of you and asks you, would you like some more wine, sir? Or whatever the scenario, that moment as the food comes out is a peak moment for you, right? So especially if you've not been to that restaurant before. So I think those sort of, that environment of performance and how that can influence someone's feeling doing a task or seeing something online is significant. So performance and speed, caching and improving optimization for content is significant in UX for sure.
What's the best piece of professional advice that you've ever been given, or maybe a favorite quote that you have?
One of my favorite quotes is from Lord of the Rings, which is, I can never remember the actual phrase itself word for word, but it's Gandalf who says, "And now you just got to decide what to do with the time that is given to you." But one of the most, I think, simple and important piece of advice I've ever had in any context of a work environment is take notes and listen more. And that was all. I struggle to listen more. I talk a lot, but yeah, take notes and listen more.
How about a book that you'd like to recommend to our viewers?
I'm a massive Tom Hanks fan in every sense, and I've been reading, very recently started Uncommon Type, which is it's just brilliant. So if you're into kind of just escape into a mad world of Tom Hanks's mind, it's just really well written. And then more from a professional point of view, I read a lot around user experience, agile experience design, things like that. There's a book by Smashing magazine, pretty old now, but like I said a little bit earlier, user experience design isn't a new thing. It's not a fad. It's not something that's come up. So for me, the fundamentals are always nice to go back to and refresh and just go, what was the core purpose and focus of this type of activity? So Smashing magazine released a book a number of years ago called Smashing UX, and so that would be certainly one to have a look at if you're getting into user experience, if you are aware of but perhaps don't know enough about it. It goes from a basic to a detailed focus. Yeah, it's a great book.
Steve, thanks so much.
No worries.
That was Steve Kreeger, the head of user experience at Earnest.